Hey everyone, Brad the mechanic here. Today, working on a 2004 Acura MDX. Has a 3.5 liter V6 in it. We're going to be doing the radiator. And before we get started, I had to hold the hood up with the vice grip because these shocks don't work. First things first, we're going to take these clips out of here on this plastic piece and get this whole thing removed. Each one, take a flathead screwdriver. Here, let's get this here. Get your flathead screwdriver in there. Kind of wiggle it a little bit, and it'll pop up like that, and you can pull these out. You're going to want to do that to all these to get more access to the upper radiator support. As you can see, once you get this plastic cover off, you can see that the radiator is a lot more accessible. We're going to be taking off a few brackets here in order to get it out, but there's a few things we got to do before that. We're going to have to take off the radiator hoses in this fan, in the fans here. But before you do that, you could have done this first, but it's, you got to do it eventually. You see that green nut down there? It's a plastic nut. You're going to twist that. That's going to start draining all the coolant out of it. Otherwise, you can just let it drain out when you take the hoses off, but it's a little less messy to get down here and turn that and let it drain out into a pan before you get started. So I'm going to drain the coolant out, and then we're going to get started on these radiator fans and hoses up back here. Actually, guys, there's, if you can see right where my light's at, there's that little drain right here. This is actually the drain. You can drain it from where I just showed you, but you have to unscrew that whole thing. This, you can just twist it, and it'll start draining the coolant out. It's hard to see, but it's right at the end of my flashlight right there. You can get it with your hands if you can, maybe underneath. Now I have to pee, but if you look, there's an access hole right there. You can reach your hand up in there, turn that, and start draining the coolant right out of there. Looks like someone's pissed after a couple monsters. Right now that we got the coolant drained out, or starting to drain out, we're going to start taking off these plugs. These are just you push these tabs down, and these will come out. Sometimes you got to work them a little bit. There you go. And then you'll notice that these wire looms have little clips on them. So they're held into the fan shroud. So there's a couple down here that you're going to have to undo, and a couple up here. And we're going to take these bolts, these 10 mils out to get this thing loose, unplug it. And then there's a ground here, we're going to undo that. And we're going to take these 10 mils out that are holding the upper part of these radiator fans. And we're also going to remove this hose to get this out of our way. We might even remove this engine cover just to give ourselves a little bit more room. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start loosening up these plugs, get these 10 mils out of here, and this radiator hose removed. So if you want to take this engine cover off, this part is separate, and these just are, you turn them 90 degrees and they come out. And then these, you pop up with your flathead and you get it open, and there's a 10 mil underneath there. Well, not under this one, but there's two here and two here that you're going to have to remove in order to take this engine cover off. So we'll do that, and like I said, these are 10 millimeters to get off. I just left them in there, kind of hold that there. Then you'll see this comes up out of here. Oh, you got to get this vacuum hose out of the way. This will come right out. There you go. And what that's going to do is give us a little bit more room to get our hands down here and access all this shit. And this hose is going to come off. I can just use needle nose on this one. Pinch her. Get her to come back here. And then sometimes I'll get behind the hose, try to get it loose that way, because if it's stuck on there, you won't be able to pull it off. You have to be able to get it loose in order to pull that sucker off of there. So yeah, so now we've got that off. We're gonna go after the 10 mils that are on top here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 on the top of each fan there. So we're gonna get those busted off. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take this. You can sometimes get this stuff out, like this fan, without taking the stuff off, but this is gonna make your life a lot easier. There's a 10 mil holding this sucker on. There's a few 10 mils holding on the hood latch. We're going to remove those, okay? And then we're going to get that out of the way, and then we're going to be able to take off these 2 bolts on this side and 1 on this side. And this is going to make the upper radiator support, this vertical support here, it's going to make that so we can move this in order to get these fans out a lot easier, because we do have to remove the fans in order to get all the way down there to the transmission lines that are connected to the bottom of the radiator. So this is going to make our life a lot easier by just getting all this shit out of here. It's just a couple 10 mil bolts. I'm also going to be taking off the 10 mil. There's some 10 mils here that are holding on the condenser. And then I'm going to also take these 10 mils off that are actually holding the radiator, and that'll give us a little bit more room to wiggle around and get to what we need. So as we went through here, this was kind of a clusterfuck getting this stuff off, but I got all those out, and once I removed the bolts, this was able to come out. Now, it was hard to move because there's a wire, a plug, that goes into the actual thing, and that is connected to the fan shroud, this right here. So you got to slide that off. In Michigan, we just have to move it until it snaps, and that'll come off, and then you can move this out of the way. So once we get that moved, we're going to start taking the rest of these top bolts off. Now I've removed this, gotten the latch out of the way here, and what I noticed is this one isn't bolted down on the bottom, but this one is. There's 2 10 mils that you just have to loosen. You don't have to take them all the way out. Just loosen them down at the bottom. There's an access panel so you can get to it. Pop those out, and then this will come loose, and we can get this one out and then this one out. So as you keep going, you'll realize there's all kinds of dumb fucking shit that's bolted onto itself in order to get this simple shit off. Down here, there's a trans cooler line. It's fucking bolted with a 10 mil here and a 10 mil there. So you have to get down there and take that off. Then you're going to have to come down here and take these lines off. And it was a pain in the ass to get the fans out. I have no idea how I'm going to put them back in without destroying the fuck out of the radiator, but we're going to try. So this is why fucking Hondas and Acuras are just a pain in the ass. So yeah, we're going to get that out, and then that's going to help us remove this radiator, because I took these brackets off and now this radiator is loose, so we can pull it out once we get the bottom radiator hose and the rest of the stuff undone from it. Alright, so now I'm going to pull this out. It's a little hung up on these trans lines here, and this back just a little bit, get a little bit more room for that to come out, and this rubber hose will come out like that. Boom shakalaka. It was only a complete pain in the ass to get out. Alright, so now that I got the new radiator set in there, went in pretty easily, I did put this here, so when I put the fans in, I'm trying to protect it a little bit so I don't scuff it up too bad when I'm putting the radiator fans back in, because it was a pain. So I'm going to try to make sure I don't screw it up worse. Alright, so after getting the radiator in, got the radiator fans in, what I did is I took this and I put it in between the radiator and the radiator fans, because when I was pushing them in, they did touch on this a little bit. So see how this is all perfect? No scratches or anything. That's because I put that there, because these have a little bit of a trouble going through here. This hose right here, this bottom hose, which has to be on before you get this, you're going to need to reach down here and push it that way in order to get access to or for this fan to fall down in there. So now that I got this in there, I'm going to put everything back together, plug in all the plugs, put the coil in, because I did take the coil out just to get a little bit more room, and I'm going to put the hood latch back on, and then I'm going to put coolant in it. I'm going to run it for a little while, let it burp the system, and then once I get it filled up in here, I'm going to take it for a small drive, make sure it doesn't overheat, make sure there's no air bubbles, and then I'll let it cool down a little bit and then top it off the rest of the way to make sure it's full. So with that, thanks for watching. I don't care if you guys like or subscribe, I just want you to fix your shit, so go out there and fix it, alright? See ya.